Hi, I'm Lenora Bresler. Welcome to the February 21st, 2017 edition of The Bible, Delight in the Details, where we bring, hopefully, some overlooked details into your biblical study so that you have more breadth, depth, and understanding of important biblical passages and ideas. Yesterday, a very dear friend of my son posted a question on Facebook, and it was, what is love? And he was being very serious. He wanted a definition. And he actually put my name in there. He wanted my opinion. And so, of course, I felt I had to respond. But I really thought about it before I did, because, for those of us who are Christians, and particularly, of course, for those of us who teach about Christianity, it's an important question, and we really ought to be able to answer it, and answer it well, and without a lot of angst over whether or not we're getting it right. We are, after all, worshiping the God of love, and if we are truly Christians, which means little Christ, then we should be walking around little bundles of love, and we certainly ought to have an understanding of what that means. Many of you know my dad is a very gifted and respected biblical scholar, and he has talked to me over the years a lot about this, about what is love really like, and it has really helped me understand love in all its different forms, whether it's romantic or platonic, or between a parent and child, or between a person and a group, and even God's love, of course, toward us and ours to Him. And when a lot of us think about love, I think the first thing we think of is that euphoric feeling of being in love, that focused, almost obsessive, I can't think about anything else other than this person. And maybe it's the excitement of discovery, somebody new has kind of turned your head, and that's what we think about. But you don't have to have loved anybody for very long to realize that it's not all fun and games. And that while, yes, many times, and hopefully most of the time, people you love can make you very, very happy, they can also make you very, very sad and frightened and disappointed. And because you care so much that everything is intensified. It's like putting something under a magnifying glass, or turning it up, or turning the heat on a stove. Everything, joys are greater, disappointments are keener, sense of betrayal is so much more keenly felt. It's just, love magnifies and intensifies everything that has to do with that person. One of the things that my dad has explained to me is that in its purest form, and in its form that is the most like the way God loves us, it has to do really with how we perceive, and therefore how we deal with the other person. God cannot see us as we are now. He has to see us differently than we are right now, because if He didn't, He couldn't have anything to do with us. We may be, as Christians, we may be freed from the penalty of sin, but we are not freed yet from the presence of sin. We have it in our lives. Now, hopefully, far less and less as we mature, as we are being sanctified in this life, but it's still there. And we're still battered about by the consequences of sin, not just our own, but those around us whose lives interact with us, and therefore whose behaviors, good and bad, influence us and impact us. And so my dad has explained to me that when you look at the Bible and how God relates with and views His people, He always sees them in their completed state, what they're going to become. And for example, great example is Gideon in Judges. He's one of the people that God raised up when the Hebrews were struggling. They would backslide. They would become like their pagan neighbors. And then the consequence of that would be that they would fall under the influence of those peoples, and they would be abused, and they would cry out to God, and God would then raise up someone, a judge, could be Samson or Gideon or Deborah or several others. And for a while, things were back on track because they came to the defense. But what's interesting is when God called Gideon, he called him and referred to him as a mighty warrior. Well, at the time, he was barely out of his teenage years probably, and he was anything but mighty. He was a scared little wimp who was literally in a basement somewhere in a wine press trying to do a job that should be being done out on a mountaintop in full view, and he was doing it because he was so scared that the Midianites in that case were going to come in and steal his wheat. And he even said, why are you calling me, of all people, a mighty warrior? Well, it's because God saw his potential, saw what he could be. And when God looks at us, that's what he sees. He sees what we could be. Maybe not what we are now, but what we have the capacity for being and what we may one day become. And of course, for the Christian, he knows that one day we will be in the image of his Son, perfect in every way. We are hopefully being conformed every day to the image and the mind of Christ. And if that's the case, then ultimately we will be like Christ in the way we see things and perceive things and judge things and the way we act. That may not come till heaven, but it will come. And so love is seeing someone. It's not about love is blind in the sense of that you don't see someone's weakness or you don't see their shortcomings. Oh, you see it. But you look at it with hope and understanding that they can and may yet overcome those things. And there is an overwhelming and ever-present desire to help in any way you possibly can to bring them to that fruition. And if a time ever came where their good and yours was in conflict, or where you had to make a choice, you would yield to their good, and your good would seem very secondary and maybe even ultimately meaningless. It's in this way that love really is sacrificial. But if you were to ask the lover, they would never see it that way, because to them the priority is what is the key. The priority of the other person is what is so important. And therefore, when you love like that, you don't feel like you're giving up anything. You're simply focusing on what is most important. It is in this way that it is absolutely true to say God is love. And when people are able to love even a little bit like this, that is agape, or godlike love. If you are a Christian, you need to understand what this means. It's not all hearts and flowers. It's not always adoring the person and not having a blind eye where you cannot see the shortcomings. But it is believing so much in someone else that you see them as God sees them, in their completed, magnificent form, and you want to do anything you can to help. So that's what I wrote to that boy on Facebook, and his mother liked it. She gave me like 3 hearts as a reply, so I guess she liked it. But the most important thing is, did I get it right? And I think maybe on this answer, I got it right. I'm Lenora Bresler. Visit me tomorrow on the next edition of The Bible. Delight in the details. Have a great day.